Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger bringing you Keto Without the Crazy. Today we have kind of an interesting topic because what if you are someone who does need a little bit of crazy keto, but I'm going to stop using the word crazy for the purpose of this video and say, what if you do need to micromanage a lot of the details about your low carb or keto diet? Because my motto, keto without the crazy, means that there is a way to approach a low carb or ketogenic diet where you do not have to weigh and measure your food and track your food in an app and follow macros and have an eating window where like you only eat between certain specific hours every day, and you do not need to deliberately maintain any particular ketone level or blood sugar level or what have you. It's you just eat food that's low in carbs and you go enjoy your life. Like that is keto without the crazy. It's also where we don't obsess over the provenance of our food. If you can afford to support local small farms in your area that are, all pasture based and organic, great, do it. If you can't afford that, you just get whatever's on sale at the local store as long as it's low in carbs. That is the overarching general view in my mind anyway of keto without the crazy. What if in your situation you do need to be a little bit or a lot of it more deliberate with some of these things? Because some of you do. And a friend of mine actually suggested this topic. I think you know who you are. Thank you. Because she was saying, there are some people who do need to go that extra mile, who really do need to micromanage some of these things. And she is absolutely right. So thank you for the reminder. And I have like a half a sentence worth of notes here. So I'll have to make sure I can do this in some type of logical manner. Let's start with the easy sort of low-hanging fruit to knock out of the way pretty quickly. If somebody comes to me for a consultation, yes, I do individual one-on-one consultations. See the link below in the notes if you'd like to book. And most of the time, people who book a session with me are booking a session because keto's not working. They're not getting the results they want. Because if they were happy with how it was going and they were getting the results they want, why would they pay money to work with me when they can just watch videos on YouTube for free? So I get a lot of people who need a little bit of help troubleshooting and tweaking. Most of the time, when keto is not working, it's a pretty simple shift or a pretty simple fix. Most of the time, people are either eating more carbohydrate than they realize, and that's a simple enough fix. Hey, cut the carbs. Sometimes they're overdoing the fat because they heard in some random place on the internet where, dirty, scary place called the internet, which we're on right now, oddly enough, that you have to eat 70% fat or 80% fat. So they're going out of their way to eat lots of cheese or to melt butter on everything and to put oil in their coffee or whatever. And so that's an easy enough fix to, hey, you need to cut back on the fat. I can spot this problem a mile away. Sometimes it's thyroid. I am hard at work on my 4th book right now. It's going to be a thyroid book. It's not a keto book at all. So anyway, my point is, sometimes it's easy enough to identify the problem and fix it. And, great, problem solved. See you next time when you've lost 10 pounds, go forth and prosper. But let's talk about some situations where people do need to be a little bit more deliberate with the exact composition of their food or when they're eating and all that. There really are no hard and fast rules here. It is very individual. And this is why I rarely give blanket recommendations. I mean, I'll give overarching advice, talk about the principles, like that's what my whole channel is. I realize that, but I really dislike giving just rules for everybody because everybody really needs something different depending on their unique circumstances. So some people might have an issue that some people might have an issue that only starts to get better if they do maintain a certain ketone level. And they won't know unless they actually measure ketones a few times a day, whether we're going to do blood, breath, or urine. You want to have some idea of your state of ketosis. So this is not really true of something like weight loss or reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing PCOS, reversing non-alcoholic fatty liver. A lot of the things that I talk frequently about on this channel, I think this applies to some of the psychological conditions, the mental health conditions, where in some cases, for some people, maybe their symptoms, whether it's going to be schizophrenia and it's hallucinations or depression or anxiety or bipolar, whatever, that only gets much better when they maintain a certain ketone level. Maybe they have to be 1.5 millimolar or higher in the blood, or 2.5 or higher, whatever it is. They won't know that unless they are actually measuring. So they might say keto's not working. Well, keto is working, but we need to tailor their keto to make sure that they, for the most part, stay above that threshold where they do best. So that's just one example. Let me think of some others in my little half a sentence here that I have. I mean, that's a big one, is the mental illness. And there's a book called Brain Energy. It's on my shelf. Maybe I should get up. Should I get up and show you the book? It's by Christopher Palmer. You don't need to see it. I'll put a link below. Brain Energy. And he talks about how the brain, a lot of mental health concerns have to do with the way the brain is producing and using energy. And it's not a keto book. He mentions a ketogenic diet like once or twice in the whole book, but we know that keto is really good for mental health. I will put a link below in the notes to a video I did specifically going into multiple mechanisms by which keto is good for mental health. So I think there's a lot of potential reasons why some of you that are dealing with those issues might only start to really feel a noticeable difference at a certain ketone level. And I would say the same thing, potentially, emphasis on the word potentially, for people dealing with neurological or neurodegenerative disorders. I wrote an entire book about Alzheimer's. It's called The Alzheimer's Antidote. You can find it on Amazon. And I've given talks probably at least 4 or 5 times at conferences now about ketogenic therapies for neurodegenerative conditions as a whole, not just Alzheimer's, also including Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, ALS, and some other stuff. Those two, and this is speculation, some people afflicted with those conditions might not notice any difference, i.e. improvement, in their symptoms and their everyday functioning unless they are at a certain ketone level. So there is most definitely a time and place to be measuring ketones and specifically constructing a ketogenic diet with the goal of having higher ketones. The goal of having higher ketones as opposed to losing 20 pounds or getting rid of your sugar cravings or whatever. Like, these are different things. A ketogenic diet can look a lot of different ways. It can consist of a lot of different things depending on somebody's specific goal and where they're starting from. Like, where are you now and where do we want to go? So that was okay. Another, and I would call that a therapeutic ketogenic diet, where you need therapeutic levels of ketones. For a lot of the stuff that I talk more frequently about on this channel, things like losing weight, reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing PCOS, improving, getting rid of gout flares, reversing non-alcoholic fatty liver, all that stuff. And of course, everybody knows I'm not a doctor, but this is well documented in the scientific literature, so I'm just telling you. In many of those conditions associated with chronically high blood sugar or chronically high insulin, the ketones themselves, your ketone level, has less of an impact on all that than just keeping your blood sugar and your insulin lower. So again, depending on your situation, your actual ketone level matters a lot, or it doesn't really matter at all. And another, so that's the difference between like a therapeutic approach to keto as just like, I like to eat a low carb diet because I feel good. Something else that I often talk about is fasting or time restricted eating. Whether we're talking, let's just not talk about long-term fasting. I don't support long-term fasting, period. I'm not a fan. If you like it, if you find it helps you, and you have someone that is making sure that you're doing it safely, do it. That's you. I'm not a big fan of extended fasting. When we're talking about intermittent fasting or that time restricted eating, let's say you say, I notice that I do best when I only eat between noon and 8 p.m. or 2 and 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Whatever the window or the number of hours a day you've determined work well for you. Again, most people don't really need to impose very, very specific time constraints around their eating. Ideally, and I know not everyone's situation is ideal, but ideally, when you keep your carbohydrate intake really low, your appetite is so well controlled and your sort of hunger and fullness are so well controlled that you do not have to deliberately impose time restrictions. You just eat when you're hungry, and when you're not hungry, you don't eat. Imagine that. Like, what? What kind of crazy notion is that? When I'm hungry, I put food in the bod, and when I'm not hungry, I don't put food in the bod. Knock me over with a feather here, people. However, imposing certain time constraints can be useful depending on what? Depending on somebody's situation. Some people who have binge eating tendencies or food addiction tendencies, or if you know that you're just, a phrase commonly used is compulsive overeating. If you consider yourself a compulsive overeater, maybe you don't binge, however we might define that. You just know that, like, every time I have a meal, I probably eat a little more than I actually need. Like if I would quit 2, 3, 4 bites sooner, I'd be okay. I wouldn't be stuffed, but I would have eaten enough to keep me satiated for a few hours. So if you know that you have a problem, or even on keto, like what did I say? Ideally, our appetite and our hunger and fullness signals are so well regulated that we have no problem eating when hungry and not eating when not hungry. Good luck with that, people. Good luck. Sometimes it does work that way. There's plenty of you out there, I'm sure, that that's how it works. Many of us, even on a low carb or keto diet, still have binging tendencies, overeating tendencies. We want to pick and graze at food all day just because food is yummy, and we just want to pick and graze all day. In some of those situations, I do think establishing firm boundaries for yourself can help. If you say, you know what, come hell or high water, I don't care how hungry I get, I don't care how anxious I get, or how much I feel the need to soothe or numb myself with food, I don't care how strong that gets, I'm only going to eat between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. or between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. or whatever time you choose. That can be helpful because you're not going to eat around the clock if you literally only allow yourself to eat for 6 hours a day or 8 or 10 hours a day or whatever. So I think that can be helpful. I don't love that approach because I think it's very punitive. And I think it's like, what if you are hungry? What if you are actually genuinely physically hungry and you're not looking to just soothe or numb out or procrastinacking? Someone I follow calls it procrastinacking. I love it. You're not eating as a procrastination strategy. Like, if you are actually genuinely physically hungry, you should eat. I want you to give yourself your own permission to eat and not just, well, I'm really, really, really hungry, but my eating window doesn't open for another 4 hours. I mean, that's nonsense. That's ridiculous. My dear friend Casey Durango from Go Keto with Casey, I just adore her. She says, we are not zoo animals. We don't have a feeding window. We are not in the zoo cage where the lion tamer opens up the feeding window and slides our steak through. We are human beings. We don't have feeding windows. I love it. But again, that being said, if you have these binging tendencies, overeating tendencies, and you know that you do best with those rules, do it. And many people who do that will outside of the eating window, you can have coffee, you can have tea, you can have like sugar-free gum or mints. So if you kind of need a little something, you don't have to just sit there and drink water and be miserable. You can have a coffee, you can have a mint or something. Let me see if I have any other specific notes. Yeah, I think let's get back to kind of that therapeutic level of ketones. And because part of my keto without the crazy is like, you don't have to do these macros. Oh, I have to have 5% carbs and 60% fat and this percent protein, like, or whatever it is. If you are someone who does feel your best and function best, however you define that for yourself, it could be mentally, emotionally, cognitively, maybe the brain fog is at bay and like you're super sharp thinking. Maybe you have chronic pain or fatigue and you notice that your energy is better or your pain is gone or much reduced at a certain ketone level. Some of that could be because of the ketones, or some of it could be because of whatever is happening in your body that happens to be generating that ketone level as an effect. So the cause of all the beneficial things you feel might not be that particular ketone level or that concentration of ketones floating in your blood. It may be the biochemical processes that are happening that happen to be generating that level of ketones. In a case like that, then yeah, you might have to be mindful of your macros because those macros are what are facilitating your body to generate that ketone level or to induce those processes that are making you feel best. So you might, like, all of this to say, most people don't need to weigh and track and measure and calculate and all this stuff, but some people do. So if you're like out there in the Wild West doing keto or trying to do keto and you still feel awful, your health problems are not really getting better, you're not losing weight, you still feel fatigued, you still feel awful, some of that might have nothing whatsoever to do with keto. And sometime soon I will make a very detailed, very heartfelt video about some of my own hormonal struggles that I've been dealing with for a while that a keto diet didn't fix, didn't correct, because I'm in ketosis most of the time and all of this stuff still happened. So if you have issues that have not gotten better, it is entirely possible that it has nothing to do with keto and you need other help. You need some other intervention to fix that or help it. But if it is something that would respond to keto, then we need to make sure that you are doing keto in the right way for you. Do I need to say that again? We need to make sure that you are doing keto in the right way for you. Because you might be trying to do Joe Blow's version of keto that you heard on his YouTube channel, or Sally Smith, whatever, who was talking about that on Twitter or Instagram. And that's all well and good. But the physiological stuff that you would respond to best is not what they are talking about. So what else can I say? I guess I can close out soon. And this is not even a plug for my services, but I do private consultations. This is why it's important to work with a professional one-on-one if you can. Because, well, assuming you're not getting the results you want. If everything's great and you are thrilled with how things are going with whatever approach you're taking to low carb or keto, then you don't need professional help. You don't need my guidance. You don't need guidance from anyone else, because whatever you're doing is working great. If whatever you're doing is not working great, then there's every reason in the world to work with a professional, whether it's me or somebody else. If you do want to book a consultation with me, do click the link below in the notes. This is the difference between somebody with a degree in this stuff, who studied the biochemistry, who knows the biochemical pathways, who knows the enzymes, who knows the hormones, versus someone who just, I don't know what. Hey, I like bone broth. I like collagen. Well, whoop-de-doo. This person needs some serious help from a credentialed professional. You know, and sorry, I should have had water here. This is like the second video I've recorded in a row and my mouth is very dry. That is not to badmouth health coaches and people who are providing advice who have no credentials. I know a lot of people with no formal education in this whatsoever who are great, who are like more knowledgeable than some doctors, frankly, when it comes to ketogenic and low carb diets. But if you've been trying for a long time and it's just not going that well, either consider booking a consultation with a professional, whether it's me or someone else, or maybe you are someone who needs, again, I'm not going to say the crazy, but maybe you need a more detailed, focused approach to keto. Maybe you are someone who does need to weigh and measure your food, and you do need to measure your ketones. Maybe not forever, maybe for 2, 3, 4 weeks, get a good idea of where things are, and then you can start to recognize patterns. Oh, whenever my ketone level was 2.0 above, I felt amazing, and when it was like 0.7, not so much. Or, and again, that's just a hypothetical. This is, everybody's different. Or, you know, when I eat more protein, I stay full longer. It keeps me satiated longer. I can go longer before my next meal. Or when I eat this type of stuff, when I eat beef, I don't know, whatever, I don't have any sugar cravings. So you can start to, if you were to track your food, or even just write it down in a handwritten notebook, you don't even need an app, some fancy spreadsheet, just write it down on a sheet of paper, you can start making those correlations as to when you feel better, when you feel worse, you know, whether we're talking about cognition, mood, mental outlook, physical energy, stamina, sex drive, you know, all this stuff. So for all of the emphasis I put on keeping things simple and not introducing all of this gadgetry and all the gizmos and the devices, there are people who can benefit from using those things, at least for some period of time. Once you identify certain patterns, you don't need to keep identifying those patterns for another 10 years. You know, track for a couple of weeks and you'll kind of know what's what. So yeah, I hope that helps somebody out there. I hope that clarifies that something I hope I do, I try to do, is to also emphasize Different things work for different people. And just because something is working extremely well for somebody out there doesn't mean that it's going to work equally well for you. You might need something a little bit different. I mean, we're all going to start from cutting carbs. Like, we're all going to keep our carbohydrate intake either very, very low or kind of low-ish, depending on where you need to be. Beyond that, some people need to tinker. And yeah. So I will close out by saying, if keto is not working for you, and who's getting sick of these air quotes besides me, but if keto is not working, meaning that you are not getting the results you want, start with the obvious stuff. Are you eating too much carbohydrate? Are you even on a ketogenic diet, or are you just kind of on a low-ish carb diet, which a low-ish carb diet works really well for some people. You might need strict keto. You might need something more. Are you, if weight loss is an issue, if you're struggling with weight, it could be too many carbs, or it could be any of the other things in the many other chapters in my book, The Stall Slayer. And this is my author advanced copy. Your copy will not have this gray line, but look, it's a little skinny book. You could read it in a day or two. All of your fat loss questions answered in The Stall Slayer. So yeah, make sure that you are actually doing a true ketogenic diet. And then beyond that, if you still need help, I'm available. Lots and lots of other very skilled, credentialed, experienced professionals will be happy to help you. And you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. If you do need something a little more specific than just keep your carbs really low, I mean, that is the starting point. I've done so many videos on that recently. The starting point, keep your carbs really low. See how far that gets you. If you still have a ways to go, if that alone is not getting you somewhere, then we might need some advanced techniques. So, and yeah, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. There's just what works best for you. And there's no shame. There's no like, X should work for me because it works for Bill over there. No, that does not exist. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. I don't know when this video is going to air. I record stuff and publish it out of order. If it is not January 2nd yet, check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com, but I'll put a link below. We are doing a 7-day Start Keto Right challenge. You will get live videos every day from myself or the world famous Dr. Eric Westman. We're going to give you the food list. We're going to tell you exactly what to do. We are going to show you and teach you how to start keto in the simplest, least complicated, most effective way. Even if you've already been doing keto, if you don't need to start keto, maybe you need a reset. Maybe you were kind of off the rails at the holidays and you need to like recalibrate back to basics. Also a great thing to do. The 7-day Start Keto Right challenge runs from January 2nd to the 8th, 2023. And I will put a link below. So do sign up. You are not going to get this kind of attention and education anywhere else. We'll see you there. All right. And if it is after January 8th, our Keto Made Simple course opens January 6th for enrollment. Keto Made Simple, also a dynamite course that will blow your mind about keto. Links to everything below. See you next time.